What if I told you the greatest power you can hold is not in what you give, but in what you refuse to give? What if silence itself could bend people's will? What if absence could command respect, desire, even fear? This is the hidden weapon that Machiavelli saw centuries ago, a weapon that rulers, generals, and cunning minds have used to dominate without lifting a sword. It is called the law of the void. And in this video, you're about to uncover why doing nothing, when done the right way, can be the strongest move of all. But here's the twist. The law of the void is not obvious. It's not the kind of thing people talk about openly. Because if everyone knew it, the game would be broken. Most people chase. They give too much. They talk too much. They fill every silence, every space, every gap, and in doing so, they lose power. The few who master the void, they control the game. So why should you watch this video until the end? Because what you'll discover here is not just another motivational trick. It's not about pretending to be confident or faking power. This is deeper. This is psychology, history, and human instinct wrapped into one. I will show you how Machiavelli's law of the void shaped kings and rulers, how it explains the downfall of those who gave too much, and how you can use it today, in modern life, without becoming a manipulator. Let's begin with a story. Centuries ago, there was a ruler who rarely spoke in public. His court would wait for his words with fear and anticipation. Days could pass, and he would say nothing. His silence created an aura of mystery. Advisors began guessing his intentions. Rivals overreacted. Allies crowded to prove loyalty. And when he finally spoke, a single sentence felt like a command carved in stone. His words carried weight, not because he was loud, but because he was scarce. This is the law of the void at work. Humans hate uncertainty. We cannot stand an empty space. If someone doesn't speak, we speak more. If someone doesn't explain, we assume. If someone withholds, we chase. And Machiavelli understood this flaw in human nature. He knew that the less you reveal, the more others reveal themselves. The less you give, the more others give to you. Think about it. In a negotiation, who wins? The one who speaks first, or the one who stays silent? Silence forces the other side to break. In relationships, who holds the upper hand? The one who gives endlessly, or the one who gives carefully, with restraint? Scarcity creates value. Mystery creates desire. Restraint creates power. And yet, most people throw this away. Machiavelli's law of the void is not about being passive. It's not about hiding in fear. It's about timing. It's about knowing when to hold back, so others lean forward. It's about letting people reveal their own weaknesses while you stay still. And history is full of examples, from emperors who withheld their plans, to revolutionaries who let their silence become a weapon. The void has always been a source of leverage. But here's where it gets dangerous. If you use it too much, the void can swallow you. Stay silent forever, and people stop listening. Withhold everything, and people stop caring. The power lies in balance, in knowing when to act, and when to refuse. That is why you must watch closely. Because by the end of this video, you will know not just what the law of the void is, but also how to use it in your own life. How to use silence, absence, and withholding to command respect, without crossing into cruelty. And along the way, you'll learn lesser-known truths, like why some rulers collapsed because they gave too much generosity, why some leaders rose higher by saying less, why in modern times, companies, influencers, even everyday people, gain more attention by being scarce, not loud. These are truths most people overlook. But once you see them, you cannot unsee them. So stay with me. Because if you understand this law, your relationships, your conversations, even your battles in life will never look the same again. Welcome to Psych Algorithm. If you want to master hidden truths of power, strategy, and human behavior, subscribe now, because silence may just be your loudest weapon. Before we talk about the power of this law, we need to understand what it really means. Machiavelli's law of the void is simple, almost too simple, yet it is the reason entire empires rose and others collapsed. The idea is this: when you give nothing, people give more. When you withhold, others rush in to fill the emptiness you leave behind. And why? Because humans hate emptiness. We cannot stand silence. We cannot stand uncertainty. When a space opens up, our minds feel compelled to fill it. This is not just philosophy, it is psychology. Think of a pause in a conversation. When one person stops talking, the silence grows heavy. Most people break it quickly, blurting out words they did not plan to say. The silence itself pulls the truth out of them. Machiavelli saw this pattern not only in personal conversations, but in the theater of politics. A prince who does not speak reveals nothing of his intention. Courtiers around him begin whispering, guessing, revealing their own ambitions. A ruler who withholds promises forces subjects to prove themselves, just to win favor. By refusing to fill the space, he makes others fill it for him. This law is not about being passive. It is about control. Imagine a king who constantly talks, who explains every move, who gives away every thought. His court grows lazy, because they already know his mind. His enemies grow bold, because they can predict his strategy. His allies grow entitled, because he gives too much, too freely. Now imagine the opposite: a king who speaks rarely, who gives little, who holds back. Every silence makes people uneasy. Every hidden promise makes them work harder. Every unanswered question makes them reveal more than they wanted. The void becomes his weapon. History is filled with leaders who mastered this, without ever naming it. Think of generals who revealed nothing about their battle plan. The enemy, lost in uncertainty, made mistakes trying to guess. Think of emperors who delayed their decisions. Their rivals exhausted themselves trying to anticipate what would come. Machiavelli was not praising laziness. He was pointing out the art of withholding. By creating absence, you create movement in others. By doing less, you make others do more. At the heart of the law of the void lies human nature. We crave certainty. We want answers. When someone withholds from us, our minds cannot rest. We replay the silence. We search for meaning. We assign value to what is missing. A gift not given seems more precious than one handed out easily. Words not spoken seem heavier than words poured out endlessly. Attention withheld feels more valuable than attention freely scattered. Machiavelli knew that the scarcity of a thing increases its power, and what is scarcer than silence? In politics, silence becomes a mask. A leader who holds back his true thoughts becomes a mystery. His enemies cannot attack what they cannot see. His allies cannot predict what he will do, so they stay cautious. Even his closest advisors project their own fears and hopes into the void, giving him more information than he gives them. The less he reveals, the more they reveal. And this imbalance is what creates control. Think about how this law works in personal life as well. In negotiations, the one who talks less often gains the better deal. Their silence pressures the other side to speak, to justify, to concede. In relationships, the one who withholds attention or words is often pursued more intensely. It is not always fair, but it is how human psychology reacts to emptiness. The void pulls us in. It makes us give. Machiavelli warned rulers against being too generous, too talkative, too predictable, because giving too much does not inspire gratitude. It inspires weakness. When people are given everything, they stop valuing it. But when something is withheld, its value multiplies. The law of the void turns this into strategy. By creating space, you make others step forward. By saying less, you make others speak more. By holding back, you gain more than you lose. This law does not mean you must vanish or remain forever silent. It means knowing when to hold back so that others reveal themselves. It means recognizing the hunger people feel when faced with emptiness. It means using absence as a form of presence, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all.
Look at the rulers of the past, and you will see a pattern so strange, yet so consistent, that it seems almost like a secret law written into the code of human nature. Many of them gained their oins, not by giving freely, but by holding back, not by showing their hands, but by concealing them, not by flooding their people with words, but by withholding words until silence itself became heavy as stone. A king who speaks rarely does not need to shout. His silence makes every phrase heavier, more memorable, more dangerous. The very absence of constant speech makes each word a weapon. A general who withholds his strategy forces the enemy to guess. He lets them exhaust themselves in uncertainty, tripping over shadows of their own imagination. By creating a void, these rulers forced others to overplay their hand. They let their rivals reveal their fears and their weaknesses, while they themselves remained still, unreadable, untouchable. Think of the emperors who delayed judgment. Their subjects grew restless, filling the silence with gossip, rumors, and endless speculation. Some would betray themselves in their nervousness, others would fight for favor. All the while, the emperor himself needed to do little more than wait. His silence created movement. His absence of action created chaos in others. By holding back, he multiplied his influence. Even when he finally acted, people believed his decision carried more weight, simply because it had been withheld. This is not myth, but pattern. Across centuries, the leaders who gained the deepest respect, and sometimes the deepest fear, were not those who shouted the loudest, but those who left space for others to stumble into. Psychology confirms what Machiavelli observed. Human beings hate uncertainty. The brain is wired to crave clarity, to close gaps, to resolve puzzles. When there is a silence, we rush to fill it. When there is a mystery, we invent answers. When someone withholds from us, we chase harder. This is why silence in a conversation almost always forces the other person to keep talking. They cannot stand the weight of unspoken words. They project into the void. They imagine what you are thinking. They reveal things they never intended to say. This is also why mystery creates desire. A person who reveals everything at once loses their charm quickly. But someone who holds something back becomes intriguing. Our minds can't rest until the gap is filled. We replay their silence. We search for meaning in their absence. This is not romance, but raw human psychology. The unknown has power because the mind cannot leave it alone. Restraint builds tension. Tension builds value, and value builds influence. Machiavelli's law was not only a political trick, it was a truth about human beings that works in every field. Love, business, power, even art. The unseen, the unsaid, the withheld. These carry more weight than the loudest shout. By giving nothing, you create leverage. It sounds absurd, but it works because of how people react to absence. Your silence becomes tension. People lean in, waiting for you to speak, hoping for your approval, fearing your judgment. Your absence becomes value. When you are not always available, your presence is desired more. When you are not always talking, your words carry greater weight. People begin to ask questions. Why is he not speaking? Why is she holding back? What does this silence mean? In their search for answers, they elevate you. They assign importance to you, even when you have done nothing. That is leverage. Power gained without effort. Control gained without lifting a hand. Think of negotiations. The person who talks least often gets the better deal. Every second of silence feels like pressure, like expectation. The other side cracks, filling the space with offers, with concessions, with explanations they didn't need to give.
Think of leadership, the boss who rarely speaks in meetings, but when he does, people fall silent because his words always cut through. His silence beforehand makes his presence electric. Think of relationships. When one person pulls back slightly, does not give everything at once, the other often chases harder, not because they are manipulative, but because emptiness pulls. The void makes us want to fill it. But now, think about the opposite. Think about those who give too much. Too many words, too much attention, too much effort. Instead of gaining value, they lose it. Their constant talking makes their words forgettable. Their constant giving makes their gifts ordinary. Their constant attention makes them predictable. When you give everything freely, people stop valuing it. They take it for granted, as if it will never run out. The very abundance of what you give makes it worthless. This is the trap that countless leaders, lovers, and ordinary people fall into. They mistake generosity for respect, when in fact, too much generosity often creates contempt. Imagine a king who promises everything to everyone. Soon his subjects see his word as cheap. Imagine a lover who gives endless attention. Soon the attention feels suffocating, not special. Imagine a worker who never says no, who always agrees. Soon his effort is expected, not appreciated. The trap of giving too much is real, and it is one of the fastest ways to lose value in the eyes of others. This is why Machiavelli's law matters. The law of the void is the cure for that trap. It does not tell you to stop giving entirely. It tells you to hold back strategically, to silence do the work, to let absence create value, to let others project, imagine, and chase, while you remain calm and restrained. Power does not always come from what you do. Sometimes, it comes from what you refuse to do. The rulers of history understood this instinctively. They learned that mystery is more commanding than constant chatter, that silence is more terrifying than threats, that absence can be more powerful than presence. They let others reveal themselves while they remained still. They created voids, and let their rivals trip into them. They built their influence not through endless action, but through restraint. And psychology explains why it worked, and why it still works today. In every conversation, every deal, every relationship, the same pattern repeats. The void creates pressure. Pressure creates action. Action reveals weakness, and weakness becomes leverage. By saying less, you see more. By giving nothing, you receive more. By holding back, you gain what others lose. That is why silence becomes tension, absence becomes value, and restraint becomes power. And just as giving too much leads to being taken for granted, withholding strategically leads to being respected, desired, and feared. This is not superstition. This is the paradox of power. The less you give, the more you gain. The more you hold back, the more others reveal. The law of the void is not about emptiness. It is about making emptiness your strongest weapon. In the world we live in today, Machiavelli's law is not buried in old books or locked away in dusty libraries. It's alive, active, and visible in the smallest details of modern life. You see it everywhere, often without noticing it. Consider the boardroom during a negotiation. Two sides sit across the table, both eager for a deal. One side speaks quickly, explaining, convincing, trying to cover every detail. The other side stays silent. They lean back, they watch, they let the silence stretch. What happens? The talkative side starts to give more, reveal more, compromise more. They hate the silence. They want to break it. And in the end, the silent negotiator often walks away with the better deal. Not because of what they said, but because of what they didn't say. The void worked for them. In relationships, the same principle applies. The person who doesn't overgive, who doesn't flood the other with constant attention, constant words, constant reassurances, often commands more respect. This is not being cold, but about balance. When someone gives too much too quickly, their value can feel cheap. But when someone holds back just enough, their presence feels earned. The void makes the other person step in, invest more, value what they get. It's the tension of restraint that creates gravity in human connections. And look at social media, the modern marketplace of attention. The people who post endlessly, who are always online, who flood timelines with constant updates, they get ignored. But the ones who post rarely, who share carefully, who seem absent most of the time, their appearance becomes an event. Scarcity makes attention more valuable. The fewer times you give, the more weight it carries. The void makes followers lean in closer, hungry for the next appearance. This is the repeating pattern. When you create a void, people move to fill it. When you step back, they step forward. When you say nothing, they speak more. When you disappear, they chase. It is not about being passive. It is about using absence as an active force. The law doesn't fade with time. It adapts. Business, relationships, and media all show us that Machiavelli's insight into human nature has only grown sharper in the modern age. But with this law comes a warning. The void is powerful, but like all power, it is dangerous in the wrong hands. Here is where ethics enter. Used wisely, the law of the void creates respect. It teaches boundaries. It reminds others that you are not desperate, that your presence has value. Silence can show strength. Distance can show independence. Restraint can protect dignity. In this way, the void is not manipulation, but self-respect made visible. Yet the same law, used cruelly, becomes a weapon. Silence can turn into punishment. Absence can turn into neglect. Withholding can turn into control. Machiavelli himself leaned toward manipulation, saw people as tools, as pieces on a board. He believed power was the ultimate goal, even if it meant deceiving or withholding to the extreme. But you don't have to walk that path. You can use the law without stripping away humanity. You can use it to build healthier relationships, not just to dominate them. This is where the moral edge lies. Do you use the void to create balance, or do you use it to create fear? Do you withhold to build respect, or do you withhold to break someone's spirit? The line is thin, and many cross it without noticing. That's why awareness is key. To use the void, ethically, is to use it as a mirror of self-worth, not as a cage for others. Still, even when used wisely, the void carries risks. There are times when it backfires. Imagine staying silent too long in a negotiation. The other side might walk away, thinking you're uninterested. I mean being absent too often in a relationship. The other person might stop waiting. Imagine withholding too much on social media. People may forget you exist. The void is not an endless source of power. It is a sharp tool, and sharp tools can cut the user just as easily as they cut the target. The danger lies in thinking the void is a permanent strategy. It is not. It works best in balance with presence. Silence works because people expect speech. Absence works because people expect presence. Withholding works because people expect giving. If you live entirely in the void, the contrast disappears. People stop noticing. What once created gravity now creates emptiness. What once sparked desire now sparks disinterest. That is why mastery of this law requires timing. You must know when to speak and when to stay silent, when to give and when to withhold, when to appear and when to disappear. The void is not doing nothing forever. It is about doing nothing at the right moment. That is what makes it so powerful. The absence must have purpose. The silence must have weight. Otherwise, it's not power. It's just emptiness. Think of it like music. The silence between notes makes the sound beautiful. Without pauses, without gaps, music becomes noise. The law of the void works the same way. Silence, absence, and restraint are not the song. They are the spaces that give the song its shape. And just as a musician knows where to pause, you must know where to leave the void. Too much noise drowns you out, but too much silence erases you. The art lies in balance. In modern life, where everyone is loud, present, and overgiving, the void is a rare weapon. It cuts through the noise. It makes people notice. But remember, it is not a haven to be swung blindly. It is a scalpel, not a hammer. Used with precision, it can carve out respect, influence, and value. Used without care, it leaves only emptiness. And once people no longer fear the emptiness, the law loses its force. That is the delicate truth of Machiavelli's law in our world today. It lives not in silence alone, not in absence alone, but in the sharp edge between presence and void. The power lies in knowing when to step forward and when to step back into nothing. So how do you take Machiavelli's law of the void and apply it to your own life? The steps are simple, but they require discipline. The first step is to stop oversharing. Too many people believe that speaking more makes them look smarter, stronger, or more convincing. But in reality, the opposite is true. The more words you spill, the less each one matters. The more you reveal, the less value your secrets hold. Machiavelli understood that people assign power to what is scarce. So when you speak, let your words carry weight. Cut away the unnecessary noise. Say less, but mean more. Your silence will do the work for you, and people will lean forward to catch the words you do choose to share. The second step is to resist the urge to fill every silence. Silence makes most people uncomfortable, and that discomfort forces them to talk, explain, or even confess more than they intended. This is the space where you gain control without moving a finger. When you stop rushing to fill silence, others will fill it for you. They will reveal themselves, their intentions, their insecurities. The silence becomes your ally. It creates gravity around you, a presence that others cannot ignore. The more they speak, the more power shifts toward you. It is a paradox, but one that works time and again. The third step is to master the art of absence. Absence does not mean vanishing forever. It means stepping back at the right moments, so that your presence grows stronger when you return. Think of it like fire. If you smother a fire with constant fuel, it dies. But if you feed it carefully, giving space between the flames, it burns brighter. The same is true with people. If you are always there, always giving, always available, you become ordinary. But if you hold back, if you create moments of distance, people come to value your presence far more. Absence sharpens desire. It builds respect. It reminds others that your time, your attention, and your presence are not cheap. When you combine these steps, speaking less, embracing silence, and mastering absence, you begin to understand the real depth of Machiavelli's lesson. Power does not always come from action. Sometimes it's from restraint. Sometimes the strongest move is no move at all. This does not mean weakness. It means control. It means knowing when to act and when to step back. It means allowing others to reveal themselves while you conserve your energy, your words, your presence. That is not passivity. That is strategy. And that is the true essence of Machiavelli's law of the void. It is not about doing nothing blindly. It is about doing nothing with intent. It is about holding back, not because you are arrayed, but because you are in command. The void is not emptiness. It is a space you create, a tool you shape, a silence you weaponize. In a world drowning in noise, the void becomes your sharpest weapon. So as you walk away from this lesson, remember, you don't always need to chase, to explain, or to overgive. Sometimes you only need to hold back. Sometimes you only need let others make the moves. And sometimes the absence you create will pull others toward you with more force than any action you could take. That is Machiavelli's wisdom. carried across centuries into your life today. If you found value in this, take a moment now to like this video. It helps us bring more of these powerful insights straight to you. And if you want to keep learning the timeless strategies that separate the audience from the extraordinary, subscribe to our channel, Psych Algorithm. Every day we uncover the secrets of power, psychology, and human nature, so you can sharpen your mind and live with greater strategy. Don't just follow blindly, learn to see the invisible forces at play, because when you master the void, you master the game.